Today's the day, busters. Class is in session. Today is the day that I give y'all the next piece of the inheritance that is for you all, the wisdom and knowledge. And if you remember, this is coming from the rendering of space of charge, which creates recursion. And then that recursion creates frequency. The recursion creates charge. The charge creates frequency. So the charge moves. Remember, the charge moves through space and time. The charge moves through space and time, and wherever those two charges meet is where we call the reality rendering space, the rendering space. So now we're going to take this, and this is the side splot. Remember, this is recursion. This is just the movement of these ions from polarity, from magnetism, creating the polarity, the two poles that creates the recursion as they chase each other back and forth and around and around. And then what that looks like is this charge in motion. That's this charge. So this charge is moving through space and time. So what happens is we get this up here, which is what I've been hiding and keeping from you for so long. So as each one of those recursive lines goes out, each one of those lines creates a frequency. And just like before, but it's a lot more complex than that. So of course you could have a situation where you created frequency, and it doesn't always give this exact pattern. So this frequency pattern is what you would call a stabilized pattern. This frequency graph, or this frequency pattern, is what you would call a stabilized pattern. And stabilized pattern is what becomes our personality, our perception, our experience. So stabilized pattern. So each of these are stable patterns. So what would be an unstable pattern is, for instance, if that same frequency were to go out and it were to go like that. Do you see that difference? A lot of breaking, a lot of fragmenting, a lot of fractalization. Turn that off. A lot of fractalization. So this is unstable patterns, right? These are unstable patterns. You can't make a prediction or recognize any structure in this rendering. So in order for us to get structure, we need stabilized patterns. And so what happens is, once the frequency goes out and a pattern stabilizes, it becomes one of these spaces. And each one of these spaces could be a different stabilized pattern in your timeline. So in this stabilized pattern, you could have stabilized fear. And in this part right here, you could have stabilized discipline. Here, you could have stabilized mathematics. Here, you could have stabilized science. Here, you could have stabilized adulthood. Here, you could have stabilized childhood. So, what that's saying, for one, is that things don't have to happen linearly in space-time. Not in the reference of signaling. So the signal for your math convergence could have been, or your science convergence could have been, in these different patterns. And at this point in the convergence, So everywhere I have these circles is a convergence point. So at that convergence point, this is where all of your different stabilized patterns came together to render you at that particular point in time. So say this is graduation. You can make it from whatever you want to make it from. This is birth, right? Let's say childhood, birth, graduation. Let's say riding a bike. Let's just say riding. Right here we can say parenting. Parenting. And in this last one we can say consciousness, awareness. So at this convergence, all of the things that you had, all of the patterns that you had stabilized in your lifetime had made you really manifested your science abilities. At this time, you were good at math, but there was never a convergence. But you stabilized math in your timeline. So what happens is when you stabilize something in your timeline, even if you don't have a convergence point, you can always access anything in your timeline. This is what you would call your akashic record. When you want to say access to your akashic record, it's access to your underneath lineage, your underneath DNA, your the signal underneath your being, your energy imprint, your life arc, your signature arc. This is your signature. This is why if somebody steals something from you, if they copy it from you, you know, because that thing that they took from you came from a particular convergence and emergence. This science, this particular thing you learned in science, let's say you learn how to build dams. That convergence, when you created that convergence, you created a language. And say, let's say you said, I don't really know enough about dams, but let's say you said the stopper. You created something and you called it the stopper. So every time somebody called something a stopper or used anything in the frame of reference of calling it a stopper as it pertains to damming, they would be using your energy, your convergence pattern. That's your convergence pattern. And anytime somebody sees it, you'll recognize it because it's your convergence pattern. Others may not recognize it, but people that have intelligence would also be able to recognize that that convergence pattern does not belong to you because you don't have a signature arc that matches that convergence pattern. That's why when influencers just follow and copy people and give random trending information, it's because they stole a pattern. And they knew that the pattern was important, and the people that were watching it don't have the intelligence to recognize that that pattern could not have emerged from a convergence from the rest of the post on their page, the rest of the content on their page. So this is important because if you want to find any part of yourself, you literally just have to go through your akash and find it in your timeline. So if you want to find your inner child is always there. The fifth grade you is always there. The happy you is always there. The thing is, you have destabilized those patterns. In order to get the things back that you want before, restabilize those patterns and to get rid of the things that you don't want anymore, destabilize those patterns. It's all about pattern stabilization at this point. Destabilize unwanted patterns, restabilize wanted patterns or new patterns. Neuroplasticity will help you bring this into real time, real life changes and let you see how your akash can be used in different non-linear time manifestations through convergence and emergence. Pay attention to what you want, find it, find the signal, transmit the signal, and the reality has no choice but to render.